Hello everyone, we are live right on time, 6:30 p.m. Central European Time. Welcome everyone to Music Talk Live number 52. So we're almost up to a year, and in fact we did start out during the pandemic, and so it's good to see now that it's almost over. People are taking off their masks and they're starting to travel again. I can't wait. I'm actually going to get my shot next week. So if I'm still here on Saturday, it means everything went well. And so I hope this finds you all well, wherever you're from. As always, please say hello in the chat room because it really helps me out while we do the video. And for those of you who are new and are not subscribed, let me just run this by you because like every good YouTuber, I kind of have to do it. So make sure you subscribe, and especially the bell, because I have a bunch of subscribers who never know when I'm live or when I post a video, which is a bit of a shame actually. And as a reminder, we are here every Saturday, 6:30 p.m. Central European Time, and that's about 12:30 noon if you are on the East Coast, and then 9:30 in the morning if you're on the West Coast. And then you kind of have to figure out your schedule, such as Jim's schedule from England, correct? Hello, Jim, good to see you. Hello, Kike from Spain. And then we'll say hello to more people as they stop by. So what's new? Well, I think I might, oh, by the way, we're giving out a free online lesson. So because we just hit 9,000 subscribers not too long ago, just last week. And I was gonna do it last week, but the idea was to have comments on last week's video. I'm going to add comments onto this video. So if you leave a comment on this video or on last week's video, by the end of this week, I will select a winner and I will announce it next Saturday on the stream. And then you can contact me and we'll do a little one-on-one lesson. And one-on-one lesson is something I've been really getting into now. After the pandemic, we saw how useful they were, and they're not second fiddle to in-person lessons. They're really something a bit different, but quite effective, as a matter of fact. Maybe sometimes even more than in person for some kind of students. So as I've been honing that for the past year, I've done probably hundreds of online lessons. I figured that I will give one out for free to thank you for your support and for your continued interest in the channel, and most of all for your continued interest in becoming a better musician. So make sure you leave a comment either on this video or on the previous one, and leave comments on all my videos. That really helps out. And what else? Soon I'll be able to announce the reason for this mess behind me. But basically I'm moving somewhere. The school remains here in Barcelona, but I will be going somewhere else and launching the online version of that. And it will be very exciting. I will have a new studio and I'm going to set it up, so don't worry about it. There's still going to be a studio. And yes, Jim from the north of the UK, that's right. And it's good to see you, by the way, and thanks for your support. By the way, if any of you want to support the channel, I'm not doing Patreon yet. I might in the future, but I want to do it in a way that is not, there's nothing behind a paywall. I want everybody to have the same amount of access to all the information. So I will figure out a way maybe to do Patreon, but in the meantime, you can support the channel. There's links below. And before we begin, make sure you download the 21 Licks free book. It's free, there's nothing attached to it. I always say it, I don't want you to think that I'm asking for your email or for any of your information. Download the little PDF because we're gonna go through another lick today. Every Saturday I show you one of the licks from that video, and usually that kind of gets us going on conversations about composition, technique, songwriting, all this stuff. So make sure you download it. There's a link down there. Just check it out. And in a few minutes, we'll get going with a video from the song Originator. And all the songs you want to hear, they're on, there's links down here to all my records. You should buy them and listen to them all day and all night on your favorite streaming service. All right, Paolo's here. Hello, Paolo. He's a great guitar player. I mentioned him, I think, a couple of times. He's a great player from a great band. Well, the details of that I leave up to him, because right, Paolo, there's been some changes, but he just recently got into the instrumental music game, and may I say that he's done it in a brilliant fashion. So you can check him out. I'm sure you can check out his channel. Great guitar player, plays some beautiful guitars. I think he has a bit of a problem with an addiction to getting guitars. You got too many guitars, Paolo, you know it. I mean, I got some, but you got way too many. But that's fine. And so he makes some great music. Go check him out by all means. And I think he just started a new YouTube channel that I kind of showed you a while ago. And so you can definitely go and support him. He's a great guy, great musician, and we'll be kind of neighbors in a way, Paolo, soon. So anyway, what's new today besides that? So basically I'm dismantling my studio to get ready to move it. Still don't know how I'm gonna do it. I get so much scrap in here, it's ridiculous. And you know, and you can see here, I don't want people to feel bad about gear, because I always say you don't need gear, and then I have a lot of gear, and so you might think, well, you know, he's talking out of his ass because he says you don't need it, but then he's got it. But look at these three things. This is basically what I recorded with for such a long time, and it wasn't too long ago, right? Then later, you know, I've been getting more into it, but you know, you can do all kinds of stuff with just a little bit of gear. And the little thing at the bottom, that's a Emu Virtuoso. It's that's probably from the early 2000s. I think I got it maybe 2002, maybe not even that. It's probably 2000. And it's called the Virtuoso 2000 actually, and it's a little orchestra-based sampler. And with that and the little thing that I don't have, it's already packed, but it's a little, you can look it up. It's a Yamaha QY70 sequencer. It's a little sequencer with a screen that's like this, and it looks like a little one of those old Nintendo toys. And you had to program every single note, every single velocity, every single note duration, every single everything into this little screen. And with that and that, I recorded a little orchestra suite when I was about 20 years old. And I composed it and recorded it. And then it was used on one of Manowar's European tours as an intro thing before they went on stage. You know, they had some music and then they would put this on. So that was really cool, but I couldn't really record anything at home because I didn't have any gear, and that's all I got. And so I would rent out, I would just sign up for the lab at the school I was going to, at the college I was going to in California. And I think at the time I was still in Stockton, or Sacramento, one of the two. And I had to go and rent this little thing, sign up for the room, and they had a little CD player and a little CD recorder, which I didn't have. So I would just plug that into CD recorder and just burn it onto CD, and that CD got sent to, I think, the Czech Republic, where they had the first show of the tour. So, you know, now you hear all about this, you know, what chain you use for mixing and mastering and all that. It was all done within that little unit. And you know, it's crazy to think about it. I'm not suggesting you do stuff like I did, but you know, you really don't need that much. And so maybe it will inspire you to just do whatever you can with whatever you got. I think there was an interview not too long ago with a great producer and mixer. I think he's from Argentina. I'm afraid I forgot his last name. His first name, I think, is Federico. He's more into the, you know, R&B world. But he's like, you know, just get a laptop and make great music. And it's true, you know, it's just that I like amps, you know, I like actual instruments. But anyway, let's get started with today's lick. Today's lick is from a song called Originator, and it's from the album Feel the Sky. You can check it out, it's the opening track. And now, as always, my head is gone, but here's the little tab. And so the idea behind this, I'm going to play it for you really quickly if I can remember it. And it's like this. And then the song starts again. So that's a little lick. And again, as you can see, I'm playing with open strings. So hopefully by now you already have the PDF in front of you. But open strings is something that's recurring in the music I make. I really enjoy open strings. And I was thinking yesterday that it might be because of my very first concert I ever saw, and the reason I changed from trying to be a bad singer to trying to be a better guitar player is because I saw these guys. Right? And the first show I ever saw, and it blew my mind, and I said, wow, you can be a guitar player and kind of be the center of attention. And that's why I moved to it. And it always struck me as, it's actually the first thing I ever learned how to play on guitar. There was a friend who had a guitar and just lent it to me, just for that. And So open strings are really cool, and the thing that works on this song specifically, which as always, I always say you don't even have to like the song. You can just look at this as a little idea, and you can certainly do much better music with these ideas that I'm making. But the idea here is that the song progression is in E, but then for this little bridge it goes to B. That's a little chord progression behind it. So that open string over the B sounds like the root, but when I go to A, it has the ninth sound. And when I go to E, it's the fifth. So that open string, as always, when I show you these little licks, that open string really helps adding layers of music and of interest to a simple chord progression. And it's a very rock and roll song, so I have to have a very simple chord progression. So let me play it back for you again, just this little part. You see I'm just going up a scale. It's basically E minor. There's no such, it's no big deal. And I'm doing this. I'm going to play it very slowly. Wait, how far should I go? Let's see. Okay, up to the D, all right. And this is the second part, right? We have a breathing room here for that little phrase. Okay, so it's a little break to the very 16 note fast lick. Now the thing here is that this song has two bridges. One is this one, the one I'm playing over, and the second one is in a different key. And maybe I will, if you want, I can talk a little bit about it, because compositionally it's kind of interesting. But so the second time I go again through this little lick, and then it just ends a bit different. So oh, sorry. First time. Second time, very similar, but it's a good trick always. You shift the focus of the solo or the melody to the higher register, so I'm going way up. And then it ends with this. Right, and so that 22 there, that's a D. The 23 there, that's a D sharp, and this is an E. And so that kind of makes it feel like I'm going to B minor, B major, and then I can finish over the E. So it kind of makes it more dominant. But anyway, the idea here is that. So very simple chords. Very simple melody. You will be able to practice this in about an hour. You'll be able to play it, but the interesting thing is how it mixes with the open string. All right, so if you listen to the open string, the second time, each chord will interpret that open string a bit differently, and so that's something you can certainly try out. We talked a little bit about it when we looked at the song 1, which kind of does a similar thing. And that's it. If you have any questions about it, please let me know, but it's quite simple. And what I was talking about, this song having two bridges, the second bridge is not part of the book, but the second bridge is actually very different, because this bridge here goes back to the lick, to the main riff, which is in E. So what I want is something that's kind of circular, still interesting, but then it goes back to 1, to home. And so the chord progression, and from here, I can go there. The second bridge is not going to take me there. It's supposed to take me to the pre-solo. It's a little lick before the solo. That's in another key. So that's something you always want to keep in mind. When you add more structure to a song, you go beyond verse, chorus, verse, chorus, bridge. You know, when you go into deeper compositional things, such as this one, which has 2 bridges, then you kind of have to weigh the benefits and the cons, right? So the benefit of that is that it will add movement and interest. The con is that it's easy to get distracted by too many different ideas within a song. So sometimes you get carried away and you have 3 verses that are all different, and then 2 bridges, and then you have the chorus is never the same, and the solo is in another key, and you think you're so smart, but the song sounds pretty dull. And that's something I find in students quite a bit. When they start composing, they kind of feel guilty of having a simple song. And you should never feel guilty about that. You should feel guilty about having a bad song. But a simple song can be extremely, it can work extremely well. So never be afraid of that. If you have a simple song, maybe you want to just focus on one section that is making the song like too long or too stale or too flat. That's when you would put in something interesting. But simple songs usually work very well. You know, we're very simple musically, we like simple things. As a matter of fact, a lot of people will enjoy Mozart's most most simple compositions rather than something very involved by Mozart himself or other people. Even Bach, look at the most famous pieces. A lot of people will quote you the beginning of some symphony, like maybe the Ninth by Beethoven, or the Fifth, or some movements, but they will not be able to kind of sit through the whole thing, right? Ask anybody, sing me the Ninth, Beethoven's Ninth. They will sing you a couple of passages, maybe one passage, you know which one, but not the whole thing, and they probably wouldn't even want to listen to the whole thing, which is a shame, but it is what it is. So never feel bad about your song being simple. You should feel bad about your song going nowhere. That's something. But anyway, the second section, the second bridge, is actually in C, right? So that's a bit different, because for E minor, C is a strange new key, and it goes like this. And then that's a bridge in B. Why is it important? Well, because B is the dominant of E. And then it brings me down to E for the solo. So I can go all around and then return back to E. All right, so that's kind of the trick behind this song, and this little section is in C, and if you want, I'll play it for you some other time, or sounds very mellow and melodic, because I'm basically getting rid of a bunch of sharps that would be there in other keys that are in the song. Anyway, that's kind of my contribution to your practice this week. Let me just put up the tablature just in case you don't have the book. But again, the book is 100% free. You can just click on the link below. It's called 21 Licks. You can get it, and you don't have to pause this video 100 times. But if you are of that inclination, here's your tablature, and you can just take screenshots of this, and there you go. All right, but my suggestion is you get the PDF. All right, so that's it. I've been pretty quick today. So any questions, anyone? I will wait for a little while as always. And I'll be doing these streams hopefully throughout the summer. I'm not sure about some of the weeks that I will be involved in moving and setting everything up, but I will try to be consistent at least through July. August might be a bit of a problem. And then as soon as I have my new studio set up, I will actually start doing random streams. And if somebody's on, perfect. And if nobody's connected, they will just stay up on the channel. And I will just do things that, wherever I'm working on something that I find interesting, I will just post it as a stream. Because that will help me remember all this stuff, and also might help you, get inspired somehow. Might be gear, might be music that I'm actually writing. So I will be doing that, but probably starting in September. And in the meantime, make sure you don't miss the Tuesdays 1 chord a week videos. And this past week, we looked at the minor add 9 chord, which is one of my favorite ones. So if you missed it, try to go back to it. It came out just a few days ago. It's called the Minor Ed 9 Chord. And for those of you who don't know, the One Chord a Week series is exactly what it sounds like. Every week on Tuesday, I put up a video on a single chord. And I think there's 40, is it 30 some or 40 videos that complete the series, and it will keep going until probably the beginning of October. I think that's when the last one is scheduled. So don't miss that. Even if you miss these streams, don't miss the One Chord a Week thing. It's very useful. All right, so there's not a lot of you guys today. I think the summer, I was in the pool today and I'm like, oh my God, I have to do the stream. So I'm sure a lot of you are doing better things, but I know you're coming back later to watch it. So if you have any questions for our folks who are not here, let me know in the chat. If not, we'll just keep it short and sweet this week, and I will go back to the pool. Also, my OBS was acting out earlier, and I was trying to set up the stream, and I had stuttering on the audio, so I hope everything is working fine. By the way, I want to thank everyone who got the books, the legato and alternate picking books, and I get a lot of messages. If I can ask you one little thing, and post it on the videos for each book, because maybe you'll inspire more people to get the books, not just because I want to sell the books, but also because I would hate for them to be kind of forgotten. With all the videos we make, those 2 videos that presented the book, sometimes they kind of get lost. But if you want, if you have the book and you enjoy it, please maybe go back to those videos and leave a comment there. I've been trying to kind of spread the word a little bit, and I'll be waiting for your questions for a couple of minutes. And if not, today will just be a short stream. That's fine. Yes, it's a UA aux. Well, that's a box of the aux. That's just yes, that one. Yes, that's the aux. And it came in a box within a box, so I'm using that. That's actually, right now it's full of pedals. I filled it up with all my pedals and to move them. But yes, it's an aux. You got one, Jim? They're great units, and people are complaining that they haven't been updated as often as they wanted. But to me, it was perfect when I bought it, and now it has a bunch of new extra cabs. But it's really great. I would suggest, I always tell people, if you're looking at one of those machines, it's a good one to have. And but the thing is, I want to just talk a little bit about this, Jim. That's a great question, because I've been asked often, especially by students, because the problem today is people go on YouTube and they see maybe me or somebody like me using one of those things, and they think they need it. But if you, for example, have only one amp, unless it's your dream amp that you want to spend the rest of your life with, and that's going to be your amp, and you want to invest in making it sound as good as possible, then great. Otherwise, these machines or these units, they're pretty expensive, and this thing is probably about 1,000 euros. And if you only have one amp, it's hard for me to recommend it, because I love it. It's one of the best things I ever bought in the studio. I use it daily when I'm not dismantling things. But it's a big investment if you only have one amp. Now, if you have a bunch of amps, I think it's the best buy you can it's the best thing you can buy. If you only have one amp, then I don't know, maybe you're better off just investing in a soundproof enclosure and mic the amp. It's going to cost you much less and probably sound just as good. But again, I have a friend who he only wants a JCM 800. That's all he wants. He has one JCM 800 and he only plays the JCM 800. And in that case, then yes, because going out to buy a great vintage greenback cabinet with a couple of great microphones and some great preamps in a great room, that would be problematic. So in that case, fine. But if you only have one amp and you're not sure how to record it, then I think probably you're better off going even virtual, even getting a little IK multimedia thing with the guitar, no, what is it called, Amplitube. You know, if you have more than 2 or 3 amps, then this becomes very tempting. You know, this one or the Boss one. Who else is out there with the torpedo ones? I just got this because I'm really into the universal audio thing. I really enjoy I have right behind the cheap stuff there, I have the, you know, an LA610. I have, of course, the 1176. I got the LA610, the 76, some sound cards. You know, I have some of the plugins. I really like the brand and the quality of what they do. So in that case, yes, but you have researched it. I use Headrush pedal board a lot of the time. Right, so you have a pedal board that kind of does the same thing. This, I think it sounds great, the aux. Hello, Akash, good to see you. But, you know, it's hard for me sometimes to recommend it. As a matter of fact, not too long ago, I was recommending everyone get, if they don't have amplifiers and they're not planning on playing live, as much as I do think that you need to be proficient with amplifiers if you're a guitar player, because really they're half the equation. I sometimes suggested people save up for a Kemper or for, you know, something of similar quality. But now the software has gotten so good, like the new Amplitube. I'm not sponsored at all. I don't think they even know what I'm doing. But the Amplitube 5 thing, the suite, the new one, I think it sounds great. And you know, if you're just starting out, then you can spend maybe 400 euros or something, and you get a sound card with good everything, good preamps, good conversions, and you get the full guitar, the Amplitube suite, right? So you're getting a bunch of stuff that will sound almost as good as the Kemper or as a mic top amp. So it's really hard for me to recommend things anymore, you know, because they progress so fast. So always I ask, you know, my students or somebody who writes to me through YouTube or the website, you know, depends, what do you want to do? You know, if you want to be serious about recording, I think nothing beats really understanding your medium. So understanding how to record a guitar, how to mic up a cabinet. But I mean, I did a video on miking up cabinets, and, you know, not a lot of people watch it anymore because it's just not that interesting. Years ago, I did one on effects loops, and it had a bunch of views, and they've been steadily going down because people are not truly getting into the live thing. They buy amplifiers maybe, but they're not really using them. I don't know why so many people now are buying tube amps for their homes. Some of them, of course, know how to use them, but usually I think they'd be better off with different technology. If you're just staying at home playing, practicing, you're not recording, you're not performing live, I think there are better options, you know, and I never thought I would say that. What's the best way to practice identifying chord progression by ear? Would love to hear your take on it. All right. And Tasfa, I ended up recording with a mic in each position and chose which ones I prefer. Oh, good. That's good to hear, Tasfa. So it was useful for somebody. That's kind of the mantra here, because I know the channel is really small. We don't get a lot of people around the channel yet. But so, you know, I don't worry about it. I just worry about making content that will be useful if somebody ever finds it. Because and so Tasfa, I'm glad that you found it and you used it. Akash, as far as your question goes, how to identify chord progressions. Let's see. If you can perceive the root of chords, because sometimes chords are played in inversions, right? And by the way, I do feel bad about promoting my own things, but go watch the One Chord a Week series on Tuesday, and you'll see that a lot of chords are played in inversions. They're not always played with the bass note as the tonic or the root. So even so, when you play a chord, your ear, if it's trained, it will be able to recognize the root, even if you're not in root position. If you're there, then you're fine, right? But let's say you're not there, my suggestion would be to just go for the lower note, because statistically, I think most times you will find the root at the bottom. And even if the guitar is not actually playing in root position, somebody else will. So you will have a bass note, you will have something guiding that ear. So if you're trying to figure out a song by ear, you can kind of trust somebody's going to be playing the root, and probably is going to be at the bottom, even if the guitar player is not. So I would go for the root. I will try to train my ear to identify the lowest note of a chord. And then you can, if you don't have perfect pitch, like I don't have it. I kind of have it sometimes, but I can't rely on it. I can trust it. I can trust my relative pitch, but not my absolute pitch. So what you do is you kind of look for the first note, which is the bass note you hear, and then look for the next one and look for the next one. That's what is called a root progression. That's a progression just of roots. It doesn't imply anything. It doesn't imply major chords, minor chords. It doesn't imply any extensions, but it still gives you an idea of where to look, right? So what I would do is I would write down the notes that you hear in that chord progression. It might be just 4 chords. You should start with something simple. And then, you know, I don't know your level as far as theory goes, Akash, but if you know a little bit, maybe you're in C major, right? The first chord is C, and you go like, well, the second root that I hear is an E, so I'm hearing this movement. And I will just assume that it's E minor, because I understand theory, I understand the fact that if we're in C major, E will have to be minor. So you try to put an E minor there. If it doesn't work, then you kind of have to do something else. But, you know, try to just start with the root and kind of fit, you know, the different chords over those roots that would make sense within the key. Now, if you don't know that, that's beyond what I can do here, you know, explaining keys and what chords fit in each key. That's just not feasible, but that's what you would do. The other thing you can do, because a lot of what we hear is the bottom and the top, and the middle stuff is kind of confusing for a lot of us when we hear stuff. So what you can do is focus on the root position first, the root progression, so the bass note, and then try to focus on the highest possible note. And that will kind of give you a little, you know, it will give you the bread in the sandwich, and you have the low thing and the top thing, and then whatever you put in the middle, you know, you'll figure it out by ear or, you know, by other means, but try to figure out what the top note is. And that's pretty simple, because it's easy for you to pick up the highest note, just as it is to pick the lowest note. So try to pick up the highest note of each chord. And it helps because usually they're probably going to be sitting here on the second or first string. You hear something like that. You see how this one really stands out? You hear it? It's easier to hear than the ones in the middle. So that's what I would do. And assuming that most chords are actually played with only 4 strings, that's one of the guitar, very often we only play 4 strings. And so you're 50% there. And then, you know, it's kind of having a little puzzle, but you already have 2 of the 4 pieces. It's easier to find the missing 2. So that's what I would do, Akash. I know this is a bit vague, but after all, we are on YouTube. You know, I don't know exactly where you're at, but hopefully this will help you out. Hello, Red Walrus. It's been a while. Good to see you. And if you guys have any more questions, I'm happy to help you out. And let's see. Emerson fans, hello there. Good to see you. If I wanted to figure out the chords, Emerson says, I try to play the chords I hear when I play the song in my head. Yes, well, if you're there, then you're pretty good, you know, because it means you can trust your ear. And that's important. The only problem with it is sometimes you can harmonize, you can truly harmonize a melody in many different ways. So if you only rely on melody to fit the chord, so if you're singing na 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 na, right, I can do it over this chord, but I can also do it over this chord, and it will work, right? And it works with everything, but it will not be exactly the song you're looking for. So Emerson, what you're saying is great, I think, but it also is great, and I think you should never lose that you're doing, because it's really how you compose your own music with your own voice, because you will hear a melody and your mind, your own mind, with your own experiences and your own opinions, you know, what makes you you, will suggest chords, and you will think, wow, this chord sounds great over this melody, and maybe I would think that it doesn't. And so what makes you unique is your opinion, basically, of all the possible harmonic and melodic choices you make. So Emerson, I think it's a greater point that maybe that you would have expected, I think, because you say hey hey at the end like you were joking, but it's extremely deep actually what you can get out of that. The only limit to it is the amount of trust you can put or place in your ear. You know, you have to be able to trust it. If you had your Parker stolen, oh, that's such a great question. You know, I've been asked many times, why am I still with Parker? Because Parker doesn't exist anymore, and it's because I like them. I've actually been offered a couple of things, and I just have no interest right now. You never know though. If I get good offer enough, you know, then I'll do it. But you say, oh, on a budget. If I were to replace my Parkers on a budget, what would you get? That is a great question. Hello, that is Art. Good to see you too. So we have people now from basically all over the world. That's, as always, it fills me with joy. And if you had your Parker stolen and had to replace them on a budget, what would you get? All right, I will open it up to the chat room because I'm not really in the loop as far as instruments go. I'm not really that much of a guitar nerd because I just want to play, and I've gotten into trouble with this. Sometimes they've asked me questions about the Parker that I don't know the answer to. But let's see, guitars that I think there are some guitars on a budget that are incredible, like the Squiers. The Squiers are great guitars. Maybe not for what I do because of I would probably need more frets than a Strat, and maybe the bar, you know, so I would probably have to go with something more modern. And let's see, I think PRS makes some, well, Paolo's here. Paolo is a great PRS proponent, and I think PRS makes some great entry level. Is it called the SE series, the PRS? I do apologize for my ignorance on this, but I think PRS makes East made, you know, is made in the Far East line of guitars, which is incredible. I think I played one and I was impressed. I think also I wouldn't go with the cheaper Parkers. I wouldn't probably go with those. I think Epiphone makes some great guitars, especially nowadays. My Les Paul is an Epiphone. It sounds better than, at least I would compare it to a very expensive Les Paul Gibson. And the guy who had the Gibson, without looking at what I was playing, picked mine. So it sounds incredible. Jim, you've been looking at Harley Benton. Well, those are also, I think, for the money, they're great guitars. I think, you know, we're living in an age where there's really no problem finding a good instrument. Because really the main problem with guitars, if you really think about it, there's only one thing that really will screw you up. Everything else can be fixed. But intonation is a problem. But now that everything is made by machines, and even in China or, you know, whatever, Vietnam or wherever they make the cheaper guitars, Indonesia, the machines are the same that you would find in a factory in America. And so it's, you know, as long as the machines run properly, right, and there's a little bit of customers, of quality control at the end of the chain, then I think you'll be pretty good. As a matter of fact, I've gifted, another one, an Ibanez guitar that I gifted to a friend. It wasn't very expensive, maybe 400 euros, and it sounds and feels incredible. And I don't think when I was a kid starting out, my guitars costed like 200 euros probably, and it was shit, you know. And nowadays, I don't think there's really a bad guitar out there because it gets filtered out so quickly, you know. But let's see. So I would go with, depending on your style, I would go with Epiphone and Squier by Fender. I would look at Yamaha, great brand for price. I would look at Harley Benton for sure, even though I think it's the Thomann brand, right? But that's fine. And I would look at the PRS. That's not really budget, but you know, it's more budget than the regular ones. And what else? It really depends on your style, you know, but I think that would cover you. And then there's Ibanez, there's what else is there? Jackson, I think they make some cheaper guitars, but I'm really kind of out of the loop there. So yeah, well, by the way, the Gibson you see behind me, the 335, that's an Epiphone. It's 300 euros. I put in some incredible pickups, and it's probably the best sounding guitar I got in my studio. Maybe not the best player, but it plays great. and it's really sound-wise a great guitar. You probably talked about it already, but what are in all the boxes behind you? I'm only joking, I'm not usually so nosy. Well, you can be nosy. It's a bunch of stuff that I have to move because I'm moving to a different city. I will tell you very shortly where. And so I'm starting to put everything away. I'm doing a spreadsheet with all the brand, model, serial number. You know, you have to be careful with this stuff. Some of it is quite valuable. And I'm kind of keeping only the things that are necessary right now, and eventually I have to figure out how to move all this stuff. So we're probably going to rent a little truck, probably destroy it while we are doing it, and destroy all my gear with it. I'm envisioning, the truck going off-road and exploding for some reason, so hopefully that won't happen. 350 pound is what? That is about $700 in Canada, probably, yeah. 350 is a good price for a guitar. I have 2 Chords, replaced the tuners and pickups. Have you tried them? I tried Chords. I think a friend of mine, his name is Neil Zaza. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but when I was in Cleveland, he was from Cleveland. He's a guitar player. And he was with Chord at the time, or had just gotten into Chord. And I played a few and they were great. But I think, his were a bit, selected. But yes, I think they're great guitars. They make some very good budget acoustic guitars too. So Chord is another brand that I would certainly, they're from Korea, aren't they? I would certainly look into them, yeah, of course. Good idea about the serial numbers and that insurance is a good idea. Oh yes, there's insurance on everything, but they have no idea. They got no idea what, if they were to look at my my 40-year-old Gibson back there, they'd be like, that's just an old guitar. They don't get it. They don't get it, so they will look it up, how much it was back then or something, and they will be like, we'll give you that. So you kind of have to be careful, and they don't know what a Moog is, right? I actually had a problem once. The neighbor upstairs, something blew up, and it started raining from the ceiling. Luckily, this room was not coinciding with anything upstairs, but the rest of the rooms, it was pouring rain inside, and it was like a horror movie, and some things got a bit damaged, and the insurance eventually had to pay a lot of money. But the guy that came from the guy upstairs, he didn't want to talk about it because he thought I was making stuff up. And I told him, listen to me well, because if you don't know about this musical gear, I will report it as it is, but you should listen to me because you don't know about it. No, I know everything about it, blah, 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 this and that. And I said, okay, well, whatever. So eventually the settlement came. They had to pay me a bunch of money. My insurance company paid me, and then they went after them. And I think the guy called me in distress, 2 weeks later. And I said, I warned you before, and now I can't help you now. I was on vacation, and I told him I'm at the beach, and you are bothering me. And I hung up on him. Thank you for answering my previous question. Here comes another. Yeah, keep shooting. By the way, guys, I really appreciate how the chat room livens up as we move, but try to be on time, because the first 20 minutes or 30 minutes I'm kind of sitting here talking to myself, and it would be much easier if you were here on time, and it will make me feel a bit more comfortable in the beginning. If you have a song with C, F, G, C, and then it goes to C, D, E, M, C, E minor, C, where the D contains an F sharp, is it safe to say that it went from C Ionian to C Lydian? Yeah, maybe. I would probably just look at it. Yeah, well, the song is certainly in C, and so C, F, G, C is C major, no issues there, no question about it. Actually, it's 1-4-5, so it's C, and then you go to C, D, E minor, C. So you could see it as C Lydian, but I would probably just look at it as C major, because I don't know if it's worth, I don't know how long the progression will go for. If the progression goes on long enough for you to establish a new key, because C Lydian is a new key even if it's the same root, then I would certainly squeeze the Lydian thing out of it, right? I would get everything I could out of Lydian. Otherwise, I might just want to glide over it. So I might not even play the F sharp. I might not even play any F. I would just let you play the D, give the little bit of extra interest on the D, and me, I would just keep playing my melody with no mention of Lydian. Does it make sense? But if it went on for long enough, then I might decide, this section is really truly Lydian, so let me make the most out of that. But yeah, but I think you got it, from the way you phrase your question. I think you're good. That's too bad, Andre. It's awful to have to go through that with other people involved in damage. And oh yeah, but in the end, it didn't work out too bad, because they had to pay a bunch of money, and I could fix some of the stuff. When playing a Lydian progression, are there certain chord extensions such as sus or sixth or ninth that are commonly used? No, I wouldn't say that, Walrus. I would say that if you're playing a Lydian progression, all you need. We talked about this, I think, before, but to me, progressions are just the same as melody, so I would look at it as a whole package. So let's say that I have a C major. That could be a Lydian progression, right? Depending on what you play. I know that's not what you're asking, but just to go a couple of steps back. Any chord progression or any chord could be any chord if you know how to imply it with your melody. So if I have a C major, and I insist on playing a D flat, which is a Phrygian note, I will kind of land onto a scale that's called, for example, the Phrygian major or Phrygian dominant scale, where it's Phrygian and major. It's an unusual key, but I can force it onto the chord if I know what I'm doing. And I have to do it with a certain authority, right? Because otherwise nobody will believe it. They say, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. What's he playing that note for? But if I know how to do it properly, rhythmically, melodically, in a proper musical way, then you'll kind of be enthused by it. You'll be like, wow, what is this sound, right? So first of all, that's the main thing. Now, as far as extensions, there are two ways you can look at it. And we talked about this before when we were discussing sometimes the licks in the book. By the way, get the free book, 21 licks. It's free. I don't want anything back from you. It's just my little gift, all right? So let's talk about C Lydian from C, right? The one thing you can do is just play C. And on top of it you go. And it's C Lydian because I say so with my melody. The chord is not saying anything. Now what you're saying, what I understand you're saying is, what if I want to make it Lydian? Then what you can do is make that C major Lydian. So if I make this C major Lydian, then I would have to play a chord, by the way, which just came out on the One Chord a Week series, which is called the C major 7 sharp 11, or some kind of derivative of that. This C major 7 has the note that makes it Lydian. And now I have two options. Either I too join the fun, and play Lydian, or I might say, you know what, the chord is already Lydian enough, I don't need to do anything. Let me do the opposite. Let me just shy away from the Lydian note. Let the chord do the Lydian thing, and let me be a bit more subtle. Over this. Because then I'm playing on two different levels. Chord, very rich harmonically, melody, very simple. And that works great. So that's one thing. Now, as far as the 6th, the 9th, and so on, depends what you like. If you like the sound of a 6th with a sharp 11, by all means, but what defines a mode or a scale is really, there's not many notes that really make the difference. So in the case of Lydian, it's only going to be the 11th. Now, if we're talking about a chord progression, like you say, then you kind of have to be mindful of two things. The chord of the key, so the root chord, and the following one. So if I'm playing C major and D major, like Akash was saying, then yes, that would be a Lydian progression, like, very Lydian progression, because this makes the full sound makes it Lydian, because I have C, E, and G on my C chord, D, F sharp, and A on my second chord, and altogether that gives me almost a complete scale, right? I could use something else on this, I could use maybe a Lydian dominant, which is a beautiful scale. It will work over this progression, but that's kind of beyond what we're doing today. But you see what I mean? I don't think I've answered your question, actually. Have I? If not, please let me know. Don't be shy about it. Sometimes I kind of go off on a tangent. And Tasfa says that I think he may be referring to extensions that imply the mode. For example, C, E, G, F sharp. Oh yes, that would be, yeah, that would be kind of the C major 7 sharp 11, or Rick Beato would call it the Lydian chord. Okay, yeah, that would be good. Yeah, that's fine, that's fine. But you know, that at that point though, it becomes so gray, you know, the area between what you're doing is harmony and what you're doing is melody, which really is gray all the time. It truly is. There's no such a big distinction between chords and melody when you really think about it. So if you have a C, E, G, F sharp, who plays the F sharp, you know, in what register? Does it matter if, you know, because my example was he plays C major and I focus on the F sharp. If I'm playing that F sharp all the time, I'm kind of just stuffing it down your throat, then I will be making your progression Lydian. But if the chord has the F sharp, then I can't escape from it, right? I can't move around. And so it depends, it truly depends. I think if a chord or a chord progression or a riff has a strong personality, you don't want to mess with it, you know, use whatever chord you need. If you want something more open, and I do instrumental music, so sometimes I need a big canvas. So for a solo section that lasts for a minute, often I don't want to be stuck into a very defined key. If you listen to some of my songs, the solo is, you know, 1 minute long, and I want to be able to kind of sneak in and out of the key. So I will try to keep the progression or just a vamp of one chord very open. I can do all kinds of stuff. And that's where knowing a lot of scales helps. Because if somebody who doesn't know much sees 2 chords, they can only identify one scale or none at all. And they start playing by ear, and then, you know, it kind of gets repetitive. But if you know a lot of scales, you say, oh, look at those 2 chords. I can play this scale, and that scale. And now it just becomes a matter of moving from one scale to another in an elegant way, or in a very strong, what do you call it, like explicit way, or sometimes you want to be more subtle, you know, but it's very artistic in a way. It's very musical, your choices. If you don't know a lot of scales, then you're kind of stuck. You go like, okay, well, let's see what I can do with the Lydian, because that's all I know how to play. You see? So studying scales and chords, that's the point. It's not to know scales and chords. It's just that you're opening up your ear and your mind to a lot of possibilities. So when you're playing and you're Lydian, I've been playing all the notes in these 4 frets, but I can see them as different scales. And now they're really compressed into 2 seconds that I play. But if I can stretch it out over a whole solo, then, you know, I can weave in and out, and you won't even realize it, but it will always be interesting. All right, so do you like experimenting with different tunings? If so, what are a few of your favorite ones? Actually, I don't. I don't really play with open tunings. I have tried, and every time I try, I come up with a few songs. But eventually I'm just too lazy, I think, and if I want to play them live, I have to bring different guitars, and I never even managed really to play with a drop D, just because I don't want to bring 2 more guitars out. And I probably should. One thing I would love to do is get a 7-string guitar, you know, maybe borrow it, or somebody would give one to me, some manufacturer. And then I would probably play a couple of songs, write a couple of songs for it, because I think if I would put my hands on a 7-string guitar for a few days, I will come up with a lot of new things for me. I'm also afraid that I would just come up with things that I think are new, and people who really are into 7 strings, they would have come up with it like 20 years ago or 10 years ago, and I would think they're new. So I'm certainly aware of my limitations, so to speak. Let's see. So what else? Any more questions? See, there's quite a few of you now. So please let me again very kindly ask you to try to be on time at 6:30. I'm just joking. I know you got many things to do. And depending where you are in the world, it's probably early in the morning now. But, you know, I think the more we do this, the more people will kind of coincide at the right time. But I'm really enjoying these conversations. And I must plug it, because if you feel you ever need help that's tailored to you, then just so you know, I have been opening online lessons and they've been working great. I will make a video on it because I will have to announce it, but I'm setting up a whole online thing, and it's not you pay and then you get some PDFs. You know, it's actually one-on-one, and I'm having so much fun from people like from different countries. I'm kind of asking them always to just move the camera so I can look out the window, and you know, you see the streets of Mumbai, of what do you call them now? You're supposed to call it Mumbai, and you see the streets of Vancouver and Rome and London, you know, and I've been kind of traveling the world just by seeing outside the windows of my students, which is great. So, and some of you are in here, so thank you. Thank you for, you know, picking me over somebody in your neighborhood. And I am sorry to them, to your teachers in your neighborhood, but I really appreciate it. And it keeps things so interesting, because when you have students come in, you know, they're always from your town, and as interesting as they are, is never just as interesting in having a student from Japan or from California or from, you know, from Italy or Sri Lanka. You know, it's just incredible. So thank you very much. And if you're interested in that, there's links. I really appreciate it. And what else? And also, I have to thank the people who are supporting the channel. So some of them are here. I won't name names unless you want me to, but it's very much appreciated. Thank you. And I know you've asked about, I was talking about this earlier, but nobody was in the chat room almost. But I will be thinking about Patreon, but I don't want to do it in a way that those who pay get more, which is kind of stupid of me, because that's the point of Patreon. But I've been thinking of setting it up in a way that's just a way for those who want to contribute. But I would kind of feel bad about not giving. I don't know. You see what I mean? I think if people can't pay, then they would be penalized if I give more stuff to those who pay. And so I was kind of hoping for your reaction to it. Maybe next week we'll talk about it, how we can do that. Because we could do Patreon without benefits, but that's also stupid, because, you know, Patreon is there for that reason. So I've been thinking about it and I can't quite figure it out. So for now there's a PayPal, but I do understand that we might want something more elegant, and I think Patreon is a good platform. But I would kind of feel bad about making stuff available only to people. You know, I will only show you things if you, I don't know, you know what I mean, right? So if you have any suggestions, feel free to get in touch with me. And if you feel that you'll be happy to be on Patreon just to know that you're supporting the channel, you don't need extra information or extra material, that's fine too. But I probably don't want to do that without discussing it with you, because that would sound a bit strange, right? Sign up for Patreon for no benefits. And so I've been trying to kind of walk that fine line. But, you know, I'm sure you understand that this takes a lot of time. The knowledge I gathered through the years took thousands of hours. And so there is something to be remunerated from. You know, I think everyone understands that. I mean, that is already the case with private lessons, so nothing wrong with a paywall. Yeah, that's true, but you know, I don't, Alex, thanks a lot. That's a great point, but I don't make it a secret. You know, my online lesson and my personal lessons, I think, are fairly priced, but they're priced accordingly to my experience, to my, you know, knowledge, and to my, I've had the thousands of hours I've taught. But that's a bit different than the channel, I think, because the channel was always set up in a way that was kind of like a bit of a legacy that you leave for people who can't do, you know, because YouTube really opens it up to the whole world, and the world has different circumstances, and so I know what you're saying, but to me, the YouTube channel was kind of a thing where we're all the same. It doesn't matter if you have money, you don't have money. We all need money, you know, we all do things. Like opening this school that I'm in right now was a big investment at the time, and it worked out. But, you know, you always expose yourself to risk and to reward. But the YouTube thing was always kind of a thing that I was like, this is for everyone. And then when the whole thing exploded about Patreon and about supporting channels, then I thought that the most elegant way to do it and the most unimposing way to do it would be to have a little PayPal thing and you can do whatever you want. And it still sounds to me like the best, not ethically, I don't think there's anything unethical about Patreon, but like it seems like the right thing. But I don't know, the truth is I've also done thousands of hours of video, I think, with the encyclopedia, with the live streams when I was doing the master classes and the chords. And so maybe I've given enough information out there and we can start to focus on something a bit different. So I've been thinking about it because I know you guys sometimes in the chat room here, or you write me messages saying, why don't you do a Patreon? And so just so you know, I'm thinking about it. But if I do it, I want to do it in a way that's proper. I don't want it to become something that it wasn't, I don't know. But yes, that's a great point, Alex. So, and the thing is, I have no issue about charging what I charge for my online lessons. It's nothing preposterous. It's actually, I think, fairly priced. But that's kind of a work thing, right? And this is kind of a little extra. So, but thanks. If you have any more comments on that, maybe next week we can have a long chat about it. And yeah, but maybe it's exactly as you say, Alex. Maybe it's exactly the point is, well, you do your thing and then you do more for the Patreons. Also, the other thing is, what would that be? After all that you have done, I can't imagine anybody being disappointed about this. Well, thanks. Yeah, no, thank you. I don't think they will be disappointed, I think, but would it make sense? I have to kind of figure out, but thanks. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thanks a lot for doing these lives. Even though we are a small group of people, we do get a lot of value. Thanks. And you'd be surprised. I do know that sometimes we get a few people, but then you get a message somewhere from somebody who's like, I really do love your stuff. And like, man, I had no idea you were watching. You never know who watches this thing. So there's always this pressure because you make a video today and there's like 11 of us or 15 of us or 5 of us and we talk and I do I teach you something and it doesn't matter, if it doesn't come out too great. But then the video stays up and you never know when you start getting like how to hold the pick from the encyclopedia. Now it's getting thousands and thousands of views and like, thank God I'm always very careful what I do with the channel, because if one day you're off and you're like, you know what, I just go through the video, whatever, screw it, I will just say whatever, and then that video blows up, then you are really screwing people, right? Because they will trust you and they will find the wrong information. So that's something I've always been careful with. But thank you very much. I really appreciate your comments. And maybe we will do the Patreon thing. Will you miss a week or so during the move, Andre? I might. The good thing is the one chord a week videos are always scheduled, so those will go on in August, whenever. Even if you're on holidays, I will haunt you with the one chord a week videos. The streams, I will try to do something, even if it's just a little something from wherever I am, even if it's live from my phone, I will try to do it. And as soon as the studio, I will kind of chronicle the whole studio thing, the building of the new studio. And maybe I will have to show you some pictures of how I built this, because you won't believe what it was like before I moved in. I bought the place and it was one of those horror movies, right? When you lift a box and there's a rattlesnake behind it. It was crazy. And I actually threw down the walls with a pickaxe, almost killed myself twice, and eventually became beautiful. The whole school is really beautiful. I'm not shy to say that it's the most beautiful looking music school you'll ever see, right? I've been to all of them here in the city and they can't touch this. So yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah, it was crazy. I'm going to look for some pictures that are on a separate hard drive somewhere, probably one of these boxes. But I've also taken pictures of the studio before I move out, because it took me a long time to put this together, so I wanted to keep an idea of what it was like. So I have these huge panoramas of the studio. I will post a couple next time. Have you had to conjugate music with a daytime job and related with music? How did you go about it? Well, I did in the beginning. Well, that's such a great question, Taspa. I hope, is it too late for this? I hope you don't get bored. Yes, I work with 2 axes. That's right. Tasfa, I will answer you right now, and I will also we will talk about it again. Okay, but I've had jobs up until I studied very early. When I was 15, my parents put me. No, they didn't. But I started working as a guitar teacher, and I often mention it. I charged 5,000 liras, which is about 2 euros or 3 an hour. But as soon as I moved to college, I started to work. I went to America. My parents helped, with tuition for school, but I also worked to support myself, and I did all kinds of stuff at the library. I worked at a restaurant, an Italian restaurant, of course. How topical for an Italian! But I used to work as a waiter. I worked at a music store in Cleveland, Ohio. I did all kinds of stuff, but I always knew that I was going to do music, and so very soon I started to think about how to conjugate, music with making a living, because the only money I ever made with music were like later on. Records do make a little something, but and so I also was lucky enough to talk to a lot of people who were very very famous musicians who, surprisingly enough to me at the time, weren't making their living from music. They were taking the money that sometimes comes in with music, because that's how the music business is. It's kind of always nothing. It's always failure until you get one lucky break. And that's why I'm taking all this YouTube thing with philosophy. I'm taking it in stride, because I'm used to failure. Failure is like the resting state of the musician is failure. So the standard state of your endeavors is no. That's the standard answer to whatever you do is no. No and failure and loss. That's something, if you want to get into music, get used to it. That's how it is. And it's like this for everyone. Doesn't matter how big you are, that's what it is like. So I realized it very early. And so what I did was, and it's funny you ask it, excuse me, because I really wanted to make a video on the finances of music, but I didn't want to come off as like I know it all. So I always kind of backed away. Maybe one day we'll do a video on it, a live stream on the finances of a musician. But anyway, as soon as I came here to Barcelona, I said, enough with the jobs. I'm going to focus on this. So I really got really heavily into making musical things that would work. So I opened the studio, and I made records that eventually went on to make some money. And I also opened this music school a few years later. And so I don't work all day at the school. I mostly do my work, but I also have students, and I have people who teach. And so that's something I learned early on, that whenever you have a lucky break, if you have some money, then don't spend it on gear. Try to think of something that will complement, whatever you're doing. And slowly through the years, I've been doing this a long time. I've started playing professional. The first paying gig I got, I was 15 or 16. So I've been doing it a long time. And it's all small increments. And I've seen so many people fall by the wayside, right? I've seen so many people spend their money in stupid things and think that because they made money today, they will make money tomorrow. And so I had a very basic philosophy of money, of living on less than I make, and being smart about it. I don't have any strange vices. I don't spend my money on drugs, and I like to travel. That's a biggie. But otherwise, I like to eventually learn how to make your money work for you. And I don't get into it because I think some people don't want to hear it, and I also think that some people will be like, just talk about guitar. We don't need your advice on money. But if we want, one day we can do it. And I will just tell you what kind of works for me and what worked for me, because certainly I've been able to do this kind of beyond what the actual sales of my records and my success as a guitar player would allow, just by being kind of smart, not smart me, but being smart about the use of money. So that's a short answer, but yes, I never wanted to be doing this after work. I always wanted to make this my work, and I don't make any. I don't live in a fantasy world. I know, for example, the YouTube thing. I spent hundreds or thousands of hours getting it together, and it still hasn't. Of course, you can imagine with these numbers, this doesn't pay for anything. This doesn't pay for whatever I make in a year on YouTube probably doesn't pay for a few hours of my time. But it's a cumulative thing. It's throughout the whole career have you been able to go from A to B. That's the way I look at it. But anyway, to get really deep into it, we'll probably need more hours. The link for the 21 licks is broken. No, it's not broken. It depends on your browser, I think. So try to copy it and paste it on your actual browser. Because I know some people, depending on what browser they use, is not working, but it is actually working. I'm trying to get started earning from music, so Insight would be cool. Well, let's talk about it soon, yeah? We'll talk about it. We'll talk about the finances of music. And okay, if you guys want, I would really hate to. I'm even careful with it with guitar because, whatever I know about guitar, I know won't work for everyone. But with finance, it's such a touchy subject because you have to tell people the truth. The truth is you don't spend more than you make. I'll tell you one more thing before we go, yeah? I used to work at a music store in Cleveland, Ohio. And we would get people into the store all the time who would go, I want this, I want that, right? I want this amplifier, I want this keyboard, and they wouldn't have money for it. And I'm not judging them, we've all gone through that. I've always been very allergic to debt, but in America, for example, it's a society that's really embraced debt. It is what it is. They have trillions of dollars in debt, in credit card debt, in all kinds of stuff. But anyway, so they would come in and say, how much is this keyboard, right? At the time I was working, this is the one that really stuck with me. I was working in the pro audio section, and I saw this guy come in, and he wanted I think it was a Yamaha keyboard. I don't know which one, the Motif or whatever. It's a big one, $5,000, $4,000. And he said, I want to buy that keyboard. I'm like, okay. I was so innocent. I had no idea. I was I don't know, 19 years old or 20 years old. I had no idea about anything. I didn't own a credit card. I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have anything. And he's like, okay, well, let's ring. I'll take it up to the cashier and you pay for it. He's like, no, I don't have money. And I'm like, well, are you supposed to pay for it? I didn't know what credit cards were. So I said, you want to put it on a card? And they're like, no, I want to finance it. So he wanted, to finance it through the store, but the store wouldn't do it, because he probably gave the information and he didn't have enough money he didn't have, his financial situation, his credit situation wasn't enough for the store to give him the credit. So that means something, right? That means something. That means you don't have the money. And what he did, he went out to the bank, came the next day, said, okay, tomorrow I'm going to come and pick it up because the bank is going to give me the money. The next day he came in and he said, I can't pick it up today because the bank didn't give me the loan. So the store didn't give him the money, the bank didn't give him the money. Now that's enough information to know you shouldn't be buying that keyboard. Eventually he went to another place. I don't know what kind of interest rate he paid for it. And he came back in and he bought the keyboard. And that's the last I saw of him. But that's when it really hit me. I'm like, this is crazy, right? And musicians seem to kind of, and I had people come into the studio here, and they want to do a recording session and they say, well, I have to first, can you give me a quote because I have to go ask for the money. And to me, that's always been crazy. That's my line. My line is, and that's really helped me, as a matter of fact, not allowing debt. And there's many schools of finance on that. There's some people who say that debt is good because you can take some money here at a cost, put it there with more benefit. But to me, I've always been very conservative with it. If I don't have money for something, I don't get it, except for the house. It's not like you run into $1 million and you go like, okay, I'm gonna buy a house and a car. But no cars, no instruments, no nothing without having the money first. And people are very sensitive about this. They go, you don't know anything, you're crazy, you should buy, I need it for my job. But anyway, I don't want to get, too heavy into it. A lesson on how not to go broke, like so many that made it big and went broke. How to avoid, and I saw a lot of those guys. I've been in this a long time. I've known a lot of bands that were really big, a lot of singers and guitar players who were in bands that I thought, because I came from a little town in Italy, that they were all millionaires. And I saw them, broke, beyond broke, and really unwise choices, in their family, in their finance. So it's sad, and I always thought it's kind of easy. You know, some people are really smart about it. You know, I don't want to name names, you know, but some people gave me advice, were, you know, they got it. And I always kind of gravitated towards those than the others. How should one get in touch with singers? If I put my best works on the internet, I feel anyone can steal those tunes. I have no label support. No, when you put something on the internet, it's really hard for people to steal it because it's out there. So you kind of published it. If you publish something, you know, you could go into, I don't know where you're from, Emerson fans, but in your country there will be a songwriter association, CI or SGI or ASCAP or BMI, and you just sign up with them and you'll be a member and you'll be able to protect your work. Ilmiras, what's up? I'm gonna live once and I would really like to either die with 0 or less on my account. See, that's another philosophy. It also depends on, and I do understand that philosophy, but if you see long term, people who struggle, you know, because you don't know when you die, right? And if the people you owe money to decide they want to, you know, they want you to cover for that, then you're in trouble. And then maybe you're by yourself and you don't care, but what if you're living in a house with somebody, maybe you have a family, maybe you have kids, maybe you are, you want to start something, a little business, maybe you want to start, you know, whatever. And so yeah, I've always been more, if I have to err, I would err on the careful side. And that I kind of learned really quickly, actually. I've always been like that. You know, not cheap. It's not that you don't buy stuff. It's just that you wait, right? Because if you waited 6 months for a keyboard, you can probably wait 6 more months and buy it in cash. And your keyboard is probably just as good as the new one. I have no children or even a dog. If I had it, would be a different story. Well, then it's probably your time to be doing that, you know. Maybe it is your time to do that. The thing is, I don't have a problem with people spending their money. That's their problem. But debt is a big thing. And living in America for so long, I learned and I saw firsthand how, you know, whole lives are ruined by the fact that you owe money to everyone. So you don't even make money anymore because all your money you make has to go out to somebody else. By the way, when you spend that dollar with your credit card and then you don't pay, then that dollar is going to cost you more and more every time you know, it's very basic finance, but yeah, we can get into it some other time. But Ilmiras, you do whatever it is that works for you. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and tell people what to do with their money because that's a sensitive subject, and I often piss people off. But with money, is just is not something I want to get into. I used to be very much against credit cards, but their convenience is huge. Now I more than ever keep a fear for using it. Well, I have no credit cards. They gave them to me at the bank, and I put them in a closet, in a drawer. Never use them. And I understand it. You know, some very smart people use them. I don't mind. I don't care. I just have this thing with them that if you know, you can use credit cards and pay them off when you have to, but. And you know, also the other thing is that when I say no credit cards, no debt, it's also a way of discussing it. You know, when you discuss these things, it's always better to just be a bit over the top with it because that's how you put your point across, maybe a bit better. But you know, it's so cultural too. But to me, it's always been easier because, well, you know, I don't really want to get into it too much, but it's kind of like moving it. You shift your time schedule just a little bit that way, and then you won't need debt and credit, right? Because if you want something today, what about you wait just long enough to start save for it? Then your whole cycle will be a cycle of having it and then spending it. But you know, that's what works for me. I more than ever keep the fear of using it alive, the credit card. Why is this such a taboo? Never understood it. Okay. Finances, I mean, why do we consider it taboo? Oh, okay, I see what you mean. No, I don't give a shit. But, you know, people come here for guitar. I don't want to be imposing views on something that, you know, it's like, I have my views on religion, and if you ask me, I'll tell you. But, you know, if people are sensitive to it, I won't go into it if people don't ask me about it. If they try to teach stuff to my children, then I will get into it, you know, or to me. I see your point and I kind of agree. I do own a credit card. I even don't have an account in any bank of my country. All right, cool. So you keep it under the thing. There's another thing that's yeah, that would be my dream, having, you know, what do you call them, the gold lingots in my room, and just break a little piece and go buy food with it. You cannot tell people what they should do while still telling them what you do, and then they can decide, oh yes, that's all I would do. I would just tell them my experiences. But you know, the thing is, if it serves me well, then I will share it. And the thing is, I've never seen anyone, truly, I've never seen anyone. And you know, you have to keep in mind that through music, I've run into, I don't know, maybe hundreds of people that I remember, and probably thousands. And I've never seen anyone who I saw going down that path that had things work out for them. You know, maybe they recovered from it, they overcame it, but it never worked out well for them, ever. I've never seen anyone who was able to eventually, you know, take good care of their family. I've never seen anyone really, truly benefit from falling down that, or for going down that hole of debt and credit and this and that. Never. It never happened. And I see stories of, you know, people making it out the other end, but they also, you know, nobody ever were better off by doing it. So that's my experience. And with musicians, even more so, because we focus on totally different things. And I try to tell people, you know, gonna work on the Eye of the Storm? All right, cool. Let me know how it goes. Maybe post a little link to you playing it. And I always get a kick out of people playing my music. All right, so it's been a pretty long one today. How about we adjourn to next week? Thank you very much for being here. It started out so slow today. I said, okay, this is it. I'm closing the channel. I'm closing the live streams if nobody's here. But it's very good to see you all. I know you're all from different parts of the world, and I really appreciate you being here on Saturday when you have so many other things you can do. So thank you. And I think these streams are kind of fulfilling their purpose of us just sitting around and talking as if we were in a normal, in our living room, just chatting about music. But I will look forward to next week, and maybe we will talk about money next week, and we'll piss people off. Well, debt is like fire in the winter. If you know what you're doing, it can save lives. Yes, it's probably more gray than the black and white way I make it out to be, but it served me well. So I always say, you know, this is bad, this is good, and that's it. But please feel free to keep doing what you're doing, everyone. You know, don't listen to me. But maybe next week we'll talk about it. I think it will be interesting. So thank you very much. Make sure you do this, please, if you haven't done so. It really helps out. I know I'm boring with that, but it's important. And I will see you next week. If you want to support the channel, there's all kinds of stuff down here, stuff that is useful. It's not just you supporting me, but hopefully you'll get a kick out of the books and all that. If not, just get the free book and keep watching, because that's kind of what this is for. All right, so have a great rest of the weekend, and I will see you on Tuesday with the new chord, and on Saturday with another video. Cheers, thanks. Yeah, thank you all. Yeah, it's great to see you all. Thank you for participating in the chat room, because I really enjoy your views. And let's buckle up for next week. If we talk about money, it's gonna be fun. See you soon. Bye bye.